Good afternoon, Michael Malice here. Let that be your welcome for the next hour. We are live here at the legendary, formerly of New York, like myself, Creek in the Cave. And my special guest is my good buddy, Tom Bilyeu. Tom was the co-founder of Quest Nutrition, which I am a proud consumer of for many years. And you are the host of Impact Theory podcast.
Yes.
And Tom, I've been having an imaginary conversation with you for weeks because I've been dealing with a conundrum for decades. And you're integral to this, and it's really exciting because one of the things that you and I share in common is that if you get something wrong, it's like, let's stop everything. How did I get wrong this result? Because that means something's incorrect in my input stream. And I think back to when I was a business major and we took accounting, and you have assets on one side, liabilities and unearned equity on the other, however it works. And some people are like, well, if it's only 5 cents off, it's like, no. It could be $5,000 and 5 cents here, 5,000 here. If there's a little mistake, it could be unraveling like a sweater, like in the cartoons. So let me break down this question I've been struggling with for 30 years. Okay. I went to Bucknell University and I absolutely hated it. Right. And I could never articulate why I hate it so much, which is interesting because if you have an aversion to something that's so visceral, you would think you'd be able to kind of put words to it. And I could describe it anecdotally, but I didn't know how to define it. And a good example of the Bucknell personality was my buddy John had a roommate named Andrew. And I said, let's play Would You Rather? And I said, would you rather lose your foot or be morbidly obese for the rest of your life? And his answer was, neither. What kind of game is this? Give me some good choices. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, it's not called Wouldn't It Be Great? And these are like the people on Twitter that's like saying, that's like asking me, would I rather eat dog shit or horse shit? It's like, I'm sure there actually is a difference. I'm sure one is actually much more palatable than the other. I don't want to eat either, but it's like if I get a call from an oncologist and he says you have cancer, I really hope it's melanoma and not pancreatic. But it's obvious to you it's not to these types because they can only juggle one ball at a time. And if the ball is like a positive thing and you're going to have a choice between 2 negative outcomes, that doesn't make sense. And they release their squid ink. And there's that piece. Okay. And then there's this big thing on social media, which I couldn't wrap my head around, where people couldn't understand being friends with those who have different political views. Right. And a lot of my friends, I don't know their political views. We don't talk politics. And I'm like, why is this such a sticking point? Because at the same time, there are certain political views. If someone has TDS, it'd be hard to be friends with them. If only because shut up. Like I don't care about Trump. When I was in Japan in April with my friend Steph, I said to myself, it's so great being in a country knowing no one's just going to bring up Trump for no reason. Right. And then just a few weeks ago, it clicked. Because I was talking to Michaela Peterson, Jordan's daughter, and they have a website called understandingyourself.com, and you take a test. And what I realized what it is, what I solve for in people I hang out with is high openness and low politeness. And politeness in this case really means more conflict aversion or being open to conflict. It means passive aggression. It doesn't mean politeness. And I also realized that a lot of times when people judge people by their politics, those things are rough corollaries because if you have high openness, historically, you'd be a leftist. Now, not so much. And then it made me also realize why I hate these Bucknell people and corporate culture so much because they're low openness and high politeness. It's a lot of passive aggressive, very womanly stuff combined with, why do you like that? These are the people who in the 80s would have said, you're eating raw fish. Like, what? And now, I know where to get the best uni. I read this article in the New Yorker without missing a beat.
Right.
So when I went to do your show, I thought you were going to be you were one of 3 people who I was completely wrong about. Because I came in there, thought I was going to come in swinging, and you completely, I was completely wrong about you. Not completely, but largely. And one of the things that gave me a false signal, because you're high openness and I would guess you're medium politeness, meaning you can do the corporate game, but you also like, look, let's cut the shit. Here's how it's going to be, blah, blah, blah. I've talked to you about stuff like that, how you had to do that at work. But you had that, was it Impact Theory or Quest's like 10 rules?
I wrote it when I was at Quest, but we have repurposed it for Impact Theory.
But it triggered me a lot because and I would love to hear you expound on this because it's written in this corporate language, which to me is almost offensive because, and I'll tell you, no, I'll tell you why. I'll tell you exactly why. I never
Yes,
read the
please.
book, Don't Move My Cheese. My mom read it for like, they gave it to her at work. And apparently the premise is it's through these little mice and like, don't move my cheese. But the point is, if you don't keep your skill set at a high level, you're going to lose your job. And it's like, okay, we're threatening you, but since it's like written with mice, it's cute. It's like fuck you. Like own your shit. Be like, look, you need to practice whatever these skills, or else
Right.
you're gonna lose your job. Don't give it to me in Comic Sans and tell me that it's cute. But that's to me why it bothers me so much. I remember when I graduated college, I knew I would be able to do a good job, but I was scared of being able to speak corporate because
Mm,
I knew there's this hidden language which has all these codes where people say one thing and they don't mean another. So
right.
there's a lot I just dropped in your lap. You've been a very successful entrepreneur. You know this world. I would love to hear your thoughts on everything I just dropped.
Well, so interestingly enough, I don't really know the corporate world. I've always been outside of that. So, but I certainly get the idea. The issue becomes when you're dealing with large groups, you have to find a way to say the thing without saying it, partly because people can't digest that information when you just give it to them super plain. Coming into the world of business, coming into the world of Hollywood, probably even more so. And I've had some famous like blowout moments where I was like, wow, maybe this strategy really won't work. I just told people plainly, I'm going to make my reputation on always saying what I mean, and whatever happens, happens. And so by the time I came into Hollywood, I was already wealthy. So that was like, all right, fair enough. I can do what I want. And if
Right.
it doesn't work, then it is what it is. But things really do implode. And so there's this sense of like, no. If you want to come into this world, I need the lubricant
Yes.
of you creating space for me to say like, no, I love it, darling. My people are going to call your people. And that really means fuck off. I hate your stuff. But like you need somehow the facade that lets you move because, and I think William Goldman had this right, nobody knows anything. So they have to position themselves to tell you that they love you while they're telling you to fuck off. So when they realize you actually have heat, they can come back to you and say, oh, I only ever said good things. Like, oh, I just got caught up. I was so busy. But if they actually say, look, I think this is trash. Maybe your next thing is going to be great. Come and tell me then. But if they've burned that bridge and they've placed that chip that I'm putting you in a box and I'm saying this isn't good enough, that then when I lose you to the other person, it damages my reputation that I couldn't see it. And no one wants to just say like, this is really hard to tell what's good, what's not good. I need to see other people like getting behind this. And so because they don't have concrete ideas that they're prepared to live and die by, they're always trying to leave everything open because they don't have a real personality.
Okay.
And the funny thing is, I get how you can find yourself in that position and that there's a tremendous amount of comfort to leave every conceivable option open to you. Wait till you see the herd start moving and then try to race ahead of them.
Sure.
And I mean, people build in the arts, they build fantastic careers by just being the fast follower enough that they can make that game work for them.
There's a quote I heard ascribed to Bowie, and I've never seen it, the source, where he supposedly said, no one ever got paid for doing something first.
That's really interesting. Yeah, getting the thing right and the timing
Yes.
wrong is the same as being wrong. And oddly enough, being the first person who moves the Overton window, shows people what's possible, but there's no monetization around it. And so there's no method of like capturing the thing. I know you're a comic book guy, so I'll throw you a reference along that I've always found utterly fascinating is you'll get like
You mean because I'm fat with a ponytail?
That's exactly why. God, I hope people are watching this.
This is the worst episode ever.
So you'll see guys that like really lay down the foundations of, let's say, a power system inside of a manga. And the early guys, like they define it, they create it, and everybody stands on their shoulders. But it's the guys like 2 or 3 generations later that perfect it, that pull from all the things that worked. And then their thing becomes the iconic thing that ends up on the Mount Rushmore of storytelling. And it's like, you ask them and they're like, well, I'm obviously stealing from that guy who's stealing from that guy. But now there's people understand the genre has been perfected, it's been honed. And so there is a pretty big tragedy for somebody like, I mean, Bowie ended up being really successful, but when you look at a Gaga who would never exist if it wasn't for a Bowie,
Well,
you begin to realize how much more successful she's been in the moment.
well, this is where I get to put on my educator hat. So
Please.
Bowie, I literally, right as I was getting in the car to come here, I got a collection of books by a photographer named Bobby Grossman, and on the cover is one of his photographs, and it was at the Mud Club, I think, and it's Bowie and Jackie Curtis. And I'm sure you don't know who Jackie Curtis is. There's a signed Jackie Curtis picture in my living room. Jackie Curtis invented glam. Jackie Curtis wore bright red wigs and was the first person to go to thrift stores and rip up all the clothes on purpose and then throw glitter everywhere. And Bowie saw this and it's like, okay, you're this androgynous freak who can't hold down a job. I'll just appropriate this, create Ziggy Stardust. Everyone's like, oh my God, you're amazing. And no one knows who Jackie Curtis is, but Bowie did. But everyone knows Bowie and Ziggy Stardust. So this is exactly an example of someone who's like, great work, Jackie. I'm just going to take it wholesale.
Yeah.
And that's what ended up happening, down to the hair and everything. It's I'll show you the photos. It's just
Crazy.
really kind of insane. But then how would you advise, this works with comics. Chris Claremont with the X-Men is a great example. And the Kurt Swan Superman in the 60s, early 60s is when it became the iconic Superman mythos that built on, or mythos, however it's pronounced, the earlier times. But how would you, there's a lot of people who are watching the show who are going to be mentally wired like me, who are high openness, low politeness. How would you advise that? And I want to thank Scott Nybakken, who worked for DC Comics, because like 25 years ago when I was starting my writing career, he said, and I wasn't getting replies to some things, he goes, no one ever wants to say no in case you later become a somebody. So they're just going to ignore you. So don't take it personally. This is the process. So it saved me so much headache that Scott told me this like 25 years ago. But how would you advise people who have this kind of mindset to navigate these spaces? Because I don't know what to tell them.
Well, you mean the in the world of, there are people here that are gatekeepers that have to say yes and say no?
No, I mean, like if I'm a young person and my personality type is high openness and low politeness, and I'm thrust into this opposite world space, how would you encourage them not to blow their brains out?
Read the 48 Laws of Power. Like that one's really simple. So
okay, good.
I don't mean to throw this in a direction you maybe didn't want to take it, but watching Zelensky, Vance, and Trump together, literally, I was like, can somebody hand all three of these guys a copy of Robert Greene's The 48 Laws of Power? This is just three people that aren't coming in going, oh, I know who everybody is here. I know how to play this dynamic. Zelensky should have come in. I get it. It's being recorded, so he's got to think about his constituency at home. I get that. But had he not challenged Vance, had he rolled over, showed his belly, which is literally one of the rules taken from Machiavelli, but Greene really summarizes it well, which is you have to play the submission card. And if he had come in and been grateful, whether he feels it or not, been grateful because he understands Trump and he knows what he has to do. So if somebody finds themselves in one of these situations, you have to play the game. And as the rich guy that's come into Hollywood and said, look, I'm just going to say what I think is true, it hasn't worked. And so thankfully, I live in an era where I can live and die by what I can create because social media has just made all of this completely irrelevant. But it was really funny to watch this happen in real time, where I was in a meeting with these Hollywood agents, big guys, like doing deals, like we're bringing telecom to Africa, like we're going to preload you on phones, Tom. This is going to be crazy, big deal, huge, millions. And they're just like, let us know if you're interested. So the first time they said, I'm like, guys, I'm interested. Like, that sounds big to me. That's a new market. If, they're about to bypass 30 years of infrastructure, they're going straight to the phones. I want to be there. Let's do it. I'll license my content. I'll do it for free so you guys can see that it works, back end, blah, blah. And they're like, amazing. We have a meeting like 2 months later and they're like, hey, just wanted to re-engage about the thing going on in Africa. Just let us know if you're interested. I was like, guys, stop. I said in the last meeting, I'm interested.
Whoa,
You're saying it again.
Hold on. I got to pause you.
Yeah.
Because it seems a lot of people wouldn't have the self-awareness or whatever the word is to be like, they would be you're even less polite than me. So
I can be even less polite than you. It's not necessarily my default.
Right. Yeah. I wouldn't have done that. So what was the emotional prompt that allowed you to be like, let's cut this shit? Were you frustrated or you were just...
Okay. Have you ever looked at somebody and wanted to headbutt them in the bridge of their nose so hard that they lose consciousness.
You mean like right now?
Yes. Just like this moment. That's how I felt, because they had been doing this. This was like my third or fourth meeting with them.
Okay.
And they were always things like this, big ideas. And I'm like, guys, I'm ready to move right now. I don't need any money from you. Whatever my side is, I can deal with it. Let's just get this moving. Because when I first was trying to make the transition out of traditional business into Hollywood, which was always the play for me, for anybody that doesn't know my backstory. So I felt this incredible sense of urgency, because I had spent almost 20 years trying to make enough money that I could break into Hollywood. So I'm like, I'm here now, but I'm in my mid 40s at this point. And so I'm like, there's no time to play. We've got to get this moving
And
immediately.
let me ask another question. Is it because of your years in Quest that you're used to people giving you the runaround and you could smell it from a mile away?
No, in normal traditional business, it's way less like that.
Wow.
Like
Okay.
especially we were in manufacturing.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's rubber meets the road. We were being courted by people that wanted to invest, and literally they end up stroking very big checks. So like, I'm now used to like, okay, this is how things get done.
Okay.
I'm coming now into this artistic world where
Yes.
nobody really understands what's going to be hot culturally. And so they have this very difficult problem. I'm not saying it's not hard. But I am saying that I could feel everything was changing, because I'm over here on YouTube doing millions of dollars. So I'm like, I have idea. I put on YouTube, no gatekeepers. It works. These guys are saying, hey, big opportunity. And I'm like, yeah, let's move on this right now. Let's get this going. I will pay my way to Africa to have whatever meeting with the telecom company. I will show them I'm real. Whatever it is that drew you to me, I can do it live in real time. Just get me there. And it was just always like, we just want to know if you're interested. And I was legitimately like, I don't know what other, literally, this was, I didn't say words like this. I said these words. Guys, whatever magic words you need me to say so that you know I am actually interested, that I will get on a plane today. I will fly with you to Africa. I will pay my own way, but I want to have the meeting. I want to, what pick? You can see I've done 500 episodes. Which of the 500 episodes would you like to preload onto the phones? Dude, when I say they emotionally shut down in the room, it was crazy. And so by the
What
end
did
of
that
it,
look like? Please.
it looked like two guys in suits who come in with bravado and joie de vivre, quite frankly. And by the end, their postures change, their faces are dour. And I realized I'm never going to see these two again. And I was just like, that's fine, because I've had, this is whatever, my third meeting with them. And every time it's about something in the future rather than taking action right now today.
What do you think was going on their end? Were they just trying to string you along?
They almost certainly wanted me to invest in something, but the way that I was moving with aggression was going to end in, you have to show me what you have that's real right now.
Okay.
And if they only have an idea and they have hype and spin, it's like, that's not going to work. Because I'm like, hey, just give me the documents, show me what this is. They're not used to people. Not only have I read a lot of contracts, I can write contracts. So I'm like, let's draft it up. Let me tell you about the points that I care about. And so it was just, I mean, from their perspective, it's the first date. I've already got my hand up their shirt, and I'm like, let's get your pants off. And so they were just like, whoa, like this is.
Or maybe they were looking to leverage your name tentatively for somebody else.
That
so they could
probably
have you
more money, if I'm honest, because I didn't really have a name in their world. But when people see money, like it gets weird really fast.
Wow. There's just so much to kind of unpack here. One of the things that you did on one of my podcasts with you, which I thought was extremely impressive, and I'm surprised it's not universal. You did a very common, like a shrink technique. You stopped and said, repeat back to me what you just heard me say. Because so many times you've done a lot of these shows, I've done a lot of these shows, people are trying to talk past each other. They're more interested in what they heard than in what you said. And you were very clearly, sincerely interested in having a meeting of the minds. And that's pretty rare. Do you think that that's something that, like, how do you navigate that space when you're talking to someone, you realize this person isn't interested in having a back and forth at all. They just want to hear themselves talk.
I find you can trap people in their own words or their own values, depending on the nature of the conversation. But you can make people very uncomfortable if you force them to say what they actually mean. But my thing is, if you're coming on a show where we're trying to get your ideas across and I'm being sincere, I'm not a gotcha interviewer. I want to actually understand what you're saying.
Right.
And so I will admittedly risk bogging the interview down to say, I can't move on until I understand this. And we can't move on if you're not understanding what I'm saying. So let's just take a beat. Let's really go down into the nitty gritty. it stems from two things. So we ended up having a huge breakthrough at Quest with an ingredient, and obviously was a big part of our success. And what ended up happening was there were me and two other guys, and we just could not understand what this ingredient salesman was trying to convey about the nature of the product. And I said, guys, listen, as the dumbest of the three of us, let me do this. I'm going to get on a call with this guy, and I'm just going to tell him, no matter how long this takes, I'm not getting off this call until I can articulate back to you what this ingredient really is at a metabolic level. And they're like, cool, try it. So I go
4 hours later.
Literally, I think it was 3.
Are you serious?
Yeah. But here's the thing, you find out where people are bullshitting and where they don't understand, because I would just keep asking them questions. Because here's something that I don't think people take seriously enough. Every hypothesis makes a prediction. So when somebody says a statement, you go, cool, you've just laid out something that makes a prediction. So for that to be true, the following thing would have to be true. Show me in the data that echoed, and now I know I can believe it. And if they can't, then I know they don't understand their own product. So people don't often think up from first principles, and they certainly don't chase a train of logic. But really, really, Michael, if I have value to offer to the world, it's that I'm just dumb enough to get confused by things like that, and just smart enough, if I slow down, I can piece it all together. And so it will force me to build a chain of logic. Now, once I have the chain of logic, now I understand how this thing actually works. Once you understand how something works, you're thinking like an engineer, and that will change everything.
Guys, do you know that when your metabolism is working properly, you'll feel the benefits in literally every aspect of your life? So there's a valuable tool that gives you insights to create a healthy metabolism for your body, and it's called Lumen. Lumen is the world's first handheld metabolic coach. It's a device that measures your metabolism through your breath, and on the app, it lets you know if you're burning fat or carbs, and it gives you tailored guidance to improve your nutrition, workout, sleep, and even stress management. All you got to do, breathe into your Lumen first thing in the morning, and you'll know what's going on with your metabolism, whether you're burning mostly fat or carbs. And then Lumen gives you a personalized nutrition plan for that day based on your measurements. You could also breathe into it before and after workouts or meals, so you know exactly what's going on in your body in real time. And Lumen will also give you tips to keep you on top of your health game. Being a sexy underwear model such as myself, my metabolism and my fitness are very important. Otherwise, I'm not going to have a roof over my head. So using Lumen helps me keep track of figuring out what my body, which is the epitome of fitness, needs every single day. And so can you. For the lady out there who watches the show, yes, I'm talking to you. It can also keep track of your cycle as well as the onset of menopause and adjust your recommendations to keep your metabolism healthy through hormonal shifts. Okay, back to the guys. Take the next step to improving your health. Go to lumen.me/malice. Get 20% off your Lumen. That's lumen.me/malice for 20% off your purchase. Thank you, Lumen, for sponsoring this episode. And also thank you for giving people information so they could keep track of their health and get in better shape. That's something we could all use, especially Tom. Let's get back to the show. God, this is so like my head spinning because there's just so much here to unpack. Let's get back to the thing about playing the game. This is something that is, I wish this is something that young people, I remember, God, I'll tell you a funny story. Oh God. Oh my God.
Can already tell I like where this is going.
This is so great. I was giving a talk to like some libertarian group in New Jersey or something. And this is the last time I talked to David Bose, who was the executive vice president of the Cato Institute. And I said, I was talking to the crowd, the kids, and I said something like, it's important to understand how to talk to people about things that matter to them. Right. And I go, how many people really understand what the Federal Reserve is and how it works, you know? And a lot of them raised their hands, and I realized, oh, they thought I was literally asking. These kids are autistic. It's like after that talk, I'm like, why'd they raise their hands? Like it took me a long time. It was so great. But my question is, I there's this other book. Have you read this book called Games People Play?
No.
My buddy, I don't want to give his name if he'll upset him. He is high on the spectrum, and he read this book, and it really helped him understand. It's from like the 50s or 60s. It's one of these like Dale Carnegie type of books, and it helped him understand that a lot. And I wish young people understood this more. So if you're watching this, a lot of when you're young, you're excited about ideas. You want to have these let's have these frank conversations, but a lot of times things, especially in the office, they're not interested in that. They're interested in signaling amiability. They're signaling interest in appearing erudite or certain other things. And they're never going to tell you talking about ideas is making me uncomfortable because this is in my wheelhouse. I just
Right.
want to pass as someone who's interested in ideas. And I don't you, what are the things you wish like you knew when you were like young and starting out in business? I'm sure there's a million things, but I wish I knew that like these people are wired very different from you. And just because they seem enthusiastic or whatever, they're not in a space where they can be free to be themselves and tell you, I don't like this or this makes me uncomfortable.
My big wish for myself would to have understood sooner that skills have utility.
Yeah. Okay.
That you don't read a book to say that you read the book, to pose, to posture. You read the book because now you can do something other people can't do.
Yeah.
And probably really embracing, I had heard it, but I hadn't embraced it, that life is a competition. And that certainly if you're an ambitious person like me, you are trying to outcompete people. Business is a competition. The people that you're competing against in your industry, they want you to lose. They will bankrupt you if they can. And so embracing, oh, this is a competition, so I need to train like an athlete. I need to understand things better than anybody else involved in this. And if I can, then I can outmaneuver them. And that was a big shift for me that I became obsessed. And I say this all the time, and I can tell like I haven't found the way to say it that lands for people, but that when you learn how to do a thing, you can do that thing in the real world. So like, what's the thing you wish you knew how to do? You can go learn that. And then that's something that you can use over and over and over and over. And in the beginning, I didn't internalize that. So I was reading a book to have read the book instead of being like, wait, I don't understand that. I have to go look that up. Otherwise I don't have the utility. I've crossed the page, but I don't have the utility from it. That was life-changing for me.
You know what? There's so many things that I want to talk to you about that we're going. I feel like we're playing. I feel like I'm playing ping pong with Kali. Like we got 8 balls going at once. I want to go back to the Zelensky thing because I really want to break this down because it was absolutely fascinating to me. Because I only saw the tail end. And it was a complete train wreck. And my immediate thought was, this really makes me sad because people are dying. You know, that was my only thought.
The only thought to have.
That was the only, right. And then I'm like, so what you just said something really confused me because I'm from Ukraine. I was born there. And I think Zelensky and I are similar age, whatever. One of the things that was inculcated to me since like kindergarten, and I don't think explicitly, I really don't think it was explicit. I can't think of a time, but it was like, it was in the air. Was to always be aware of who has power over you and to understand that people turn on you for no reason, or sometimes they will use this power simply for its own sake for like sadistic purposes. And for a long time, until I'd say my 30s, whenever I said something to someone, I ran a filter in split second. If this person flips on me, is it okay for me to tell them this? This was just part of this kind of Soviet.
It's not crazy.
Right. It's not crazy. And then at certain points, like if you live like this, you're never going to be able to have these really kind of sincere conversations. And I've had people turn on me and it's just like, you know what, it's not, and I'm sure you agree with this. When you're starting out, it's like, I don't want to get punched in the face. And then at certain points, like I'm strong enough that I'm going to take the punch and I can handle it and it's fine.
Well said.
Right. Zelensky understands this better than I do. Like much better. Right. He's there. And it is just absolutely mind-boggling that if you're going to go to someone's house with asking for a check, where this person just called you a dictator and is posturing that you're the out group, and even if they're doing shitty things from your perspective, Zelensky's perspective, not mine, like he's cozying up to Putin, trying to cut me out of the deal of the imposed peace, that I am going to kind of poke the bear in public. It made no, and the thing is, at first I was like, am I saying this wrong? Then my buddy Lex Friedman, of all people, you know, Mr. Love, was like, he tweeted out, he goes, I'm trying to make peace here, and Zelensky, you were very disrespectful. I'm like, if Lex is calling it out, this is bad. I would love to hear your breakdown of that interaction, because it was jaw-dropping to me and so gross and unnecessary.
Yep. So first of all, it is very important to remember that there were cameras on everything. So that like
and he
set
knew
everything up. Yep. But this is now somebody, I forget who said this, but hey, everybody, when you're watching this, remember that Zelensky has a right wing as well. And I thought, ooh, that is a good note to hold. So they all come in Trump's getting asked a bunch of questions. He's saying, not to Zelensky, he's saying to one of the reporters, you want me to be tough? I can be tough. Okay. Hold that in the back of your mind. That's now in the space. So if I'm Zelensky, I'm tracking that variable. And I'm like, they're priming him to want to slap me around. Interesting. I'm going to keep that in mind. Then when JD Vance says his thing, Zelensky's error was turning to him and I get why he said it. Like, imagine this is a guy who, hey, we'll offer you a ride out. No, I don't need a ride. I need bullets. Who's sending young men to die, who's I'm sure heard the lamentations of mothers and wives of these kids that he sent to die. And they're fighting valiantly to defend their country. And so he's carrying all that weight. He knows that Putin has signed ceasefires before only to violate them. And so he's saying, and I think there's probably a two ships passing in the night moment between him and Trump that's sort of lingering in the air before this moment, which is Zelensky making it very clear, I need security guarantees because he could violate this at any second. Trump knowing, I've told you 8 times, kid, while there is a war going on, I am not going to give you security guarantees because it could suck me into a war.
A nuclear war.
Right. He's tried to explain, like, look, I'll care deeply about your country because of the mineral rights, and I will then do whatever sanctions, whatever I need to keep Putin at bay. But I'm not fucking writing it down so that you can hold my feet to the fire and I have to back out of something.
Yeah.
So they're not connecting on that point. So when Zelensky turns to Vance and challenges him saying, what diplomacy? Now you trigger Vance, who then because Vance knows, you can tell by the way he changes everything about his posture. He suddenly turns to the peanut gallery. He switches what he's talking about because he doesn't have a great answer because it is true, but it was just a wildly inappropriate thing to say in this moment. So you've got Vance now playing to the crowd, becomes theatrical. And then Trump obviously picking up on that is now escalating. He's got, you want me to be tough, huh? Running in the back of his mind. And then Zelensky makes the just absolute fatal error of going, look, you guys think you're safe now, but you're going to feel it. And then boom, he's off to the races with, don't tell me how we're going to feel, which probably was a wildly disproportionate response to what he actually said.
Right.
But he was waiting for some in to be the tough guy, to show people that he's not going to let Zelensky push him around. And then the fascinating thing about this administration is they cannot help themselves but to show their cards.
But I don't know if that he was waiting for that in or he was primed. I think it's on a visceral level, Trump doesn't feel the need to keep throwing good money after bad, right? And
there is also that, but so Trump, my whole thing is, what's your end goal?
Right.
When you play that out with Trump's end goal being peace, it doesn't make sense. When you play that out where he has a true stated end goal to end in peace and him to be known as a peacemaker and all that. But once you insert an invisible goal to have his due respect in his mind, then this all makes sense. Because what was violated was Trump, as far as I can tell, has an invisible goal that you're going to show me my due respect. He did not get that. And that's where everything derailed. Now, if I'm Trump and I really want the end goal of peace, and I say, literally, this is how I live my life. I say, what is my end goal? Okay, to get peace there. Do I have any other goals? And maybe there's an invisible goal in there I don't understand. And I'm in the meeting and something triggers me emotionally. I know an emotional trigger means I have an invisible goal that I haven't yet recognized. So I'm going to say, okay, wait, does getting mad here serve my end goal? No, it doesn't. So if I were Trump, what I would have done is said, hold on, stop, because I've got to show everybody I'm willing to be tough. Stop. Zelensky, Vance, or maybe he leaves Vance out of it because that's a bad look for him. Guys, we're not talking about this here in front of all the cameras. Everybody clear the room, or we're going to leave the room and we're going to go have this conversation in public. Now Trump gets a signal, I'm a badass, because everybody that's in his base assumes he's going to go off camera and slap Zelensky around, but at least it's going to be off camera. Then Zelensky can stop posturing and can roll over, show his belly because he's not being recorded. And now we can actually get the mineral rights deal. We can actually get to the peace if it's going to be possible. I mean, Zelensky's saying things now that make me think that he just may not be able to wrap his head around this idea of, I cannot give you a written security guarantee, but I will care so deeply about the financial access to your mineral rights that I will act like somebody who, at least up to the point of good sense, is going to throw a strong arm in your direction.
But it's so crazy because Zelensky's acting like the American here, because Ukrainians know the thing about the handshake. Do you know what I mean? Like in Eastern Europe, you understand that handshake is going to often be more important than whatever's on a piece of paper.
Yeah.
So that is bizarre to me. And also I would tweak what you just said, because I think Trump thinks peace and getting his respect are synonymous.
That's interesting.
That he does not think it's possible to have a lasting peace unless you are treated respectfully in the sense of deferential. Because it's like, if you don't respect me, Putin's going to give me what I want now, and then 5 minutes later he's going to stab me in the back because he doesn't respect me. I think Trump thinks those two things are interchangeable, and I don't think he's crazy for thinking that.
Very possible.
It just, and I had a bunch of friends over on Sunday, and again, I was very sad about this because all I thought about the dead Russians, dead Ukrainians, and then I realized this actually could be life-saving, because it does seem to me that Zelensky or the forces behind him or whatever are like, we're just going to keep going until the last man is standing. We can't let Putin, gain a meter of Ukrainian territory. And you hear this a lot in the media, like, you can't let Putin get away with this. It's like, if that is your hypothesis, to use what you do, let's follow this logical chain of thought. Are you prepared to go to Moscow and take Putin out, right? To take out Hitler, contemporary Hitler. And if you're not, then he is going to get away with it. Like, unless he has personal consequences, you're acknowledging he's getting away with it. So let's stop pretending that this is going to end with Putin getting removed from power. It's not. So you're going to have some compromise somewhere. And at a certain point, I had a debate on my show with Konstantin Kissin from Trigonometry and Dave Smith about this. And I didn't know anything about it, even though I'm from there. And I asked Konstantin, I go, is it your claim? And I wasn't playing gotcha. I'm like, that if Putin conquers all of Ukraine tomorrow, that he's going to start, massacring, Ukrainian civilians for like just millions. And he goes, no. I go, okay, then we're cutting a deal. Because if the worst thing that happens is it's humiliating. They have to speak Russian. It throws back to the 20th century. It's awful. At the same time, at a certain point, you're going to have to call the truce.
Yeah.
As awful as it is for the Ukrainian people.
I agree, man. And look, I will often remind my listeners that if this were China and they'd invaded California and it was Los Angeles and there are Chinese troops everywhere, I'd feel very differently. And so
that's true. Yeah.
I get that
You'd
they're
be
going to
rooting
fight.
for the Chinese. Someone's got to save us from California.
Yeah, somebody finally has to end this liberal madness. Yeah. God, I wish that were less true. So that I get all of it, but it's still like, when you're looking at the death and the bloodshed, at some point you have to say, like, there's a sensible way out of this.
Yeah, and the point of a compromise is no one's really happy, but everyone can accept it.
Hey folks, Michael Malice here, tolerated author, Twitter asshole, and sheath underwear model. I love wearing sheath. I wear it every single day. They're the most comfortable briefs you'll ever wear. Every time you hear my voice, you should know I'm wearing sheath. And what makes sheath different is that they have dual pouch technology. They have one pouch for one part of your male anatomy, another pouch for another part of your male anatomy. Sounds weird, but when you put them on, they're going to be super comfortable. They keep you cool in the hot weather, keep you nice and snug in an interview, on a date, doing a podcast, so on and so forth. After you tried sheath, you're never going back to the other brands. Support the underwear that supports you. Go to sheathunderwear.com, use promo code Malice. You get 20% off. That's sheathunderwear.com, promo code MALICE, 20% off. They've got shirts, they've got hoodies, they've got mesh ones. They have something for you. They also have a girls line, but since women aren't allowed to listen to the show, I can't help you. Sheathunderwear.com, promo code Malice. Hey guys, it's hot outside. Your nighttime bedroom temperature has a huge impact on your sleep. And if you wake up too hot or too cold, I highly recommend you check out Miracle Made's bed sheets. Miracle Made sheets are inspired by NASA, and they use silver-infused fabrics that are temperature regulating, so you can sleep at that perfect temperature all night long. And they're very comfortable without the high price tag of other luxury brands, and feel as nice, if not nicer, than sheets used by some 5-star hotels. Stop sleeping in bacteria because it can clog your pores. It causes breakouts and acne. Sleep clean with Miracle. Go to trymiracle.com/malice to try the sheets today. Whether you're buying them for yourself or as a gift for a loved one, if you order today, you can save over 40%. And if you use promo code Malice at checkout, you get 3 free towels and save an extra 20%. They're so confident in their product, it's backed with a 30-day money-back guarantee. If you aren't 100% satisfied, full refund. Upgrade your sleep with Miracle Made. Go to trymiracle.com/malice and use code Malice to get your free 3-piece towel set. Save over 40% off. Again, that's trymiracle.com/malice to treat yourself. Thank you, Miracle Made, for sponsoring this episode. Let's get back to the show.
That's interesting that you spoke so highly of the 48 Laws of Power. Are there any other such books that you think would just blow people's minds and
if they're willing to read it twice, yes. This book has really, now that I'm getting into the realm of politics, this book has really encapsulated. It has the highest predictive validity of what you're watching happen.
The
It's by
Turner
James
Diaries?
Burnham.
Oh,
What'd you say?
The Turner Diaries.
Yeah, exactly.
You're about to say the Machiavellians.
Yeah.
So me,
Unbelievable.
in my book, Then You Write, me and Curtis Yarvin, Mencius Moldbug, were both asked independently, what is the one book that you would recommend in politics for people to read? And we both independently said the Machiavellians. So
It's
I'm glad
so
this makes a
important.
trio.
So
Wow.
important, dude.
Okay, so I would love to hear your, that's so interesting because you're not a kook. So I would love to hear.
Well, thank you.
That wasn't a compliment. I would love to. That was me being corporate.
It's good. You have some politeness.
Am I speaking it well? I'm passing. I'm passing as corporate.
Great.
He's not a kook. I would love to hear from your perspective why that book is so excellent. And by the way, there's another book he wrote called, I forget what it was. There's a Managerial Revolution and there's another one. And he basically, his predictions are all wrong. So it's fascinating that the Machiavellians is the one go-to book I would read. But then when you read the book where he actually makes predictions, it's all off.
That's really interesting.
Because he predicts Hitler's going to win and all this other stuff. Like it's just fascinating. And all these other things he says are going to happen don't happen.
It's a good reminder because he was writing it at that time.
Yeah.
It's a good reminder that when you're this close to it, there's so many unknowable things that the odds of you getting it right are basically zero, even though the takeaways are so useful. So there's really two things in the book that in a book full of incredibly useful nuggets, there were two that really have come to define how I look at the moment. And that is the idea that man as political animal is knowable. And the easiest way to encapsulate it is they will lie, spin, cheat, do whatever to obtain and maintain power. So whatever political figure you like, that's their game. And so if you look at their behavior through that lens, they will make way more sense to you than if you think, oh, this is a pure person who's just coming in to do a good thing. Because especially the people who believe that they are coming in to do a good thing are going to lie, spin, all that stuff because they believe like you've got to get me in power and this is just how the machinery works.
Wait, can I say something? There's
please.
this great moment that validates this when, Margaret Thatcher was very known for being forthright and she wouldn't even shut up, just always lecturing and, strong iron lady. There's a moment where Reagan and Gorbachev are talking about denuclearization. And she says, like, I think she said to her home secretary, she goes, like, how do you know that Gorbachev wouldn't cheat? I would cheat. So even she drops that mask at certain points because like that is the nature of the game. It's like, yeah, power versus power. I'll say I want to present as this strong, honest leader, but behind closed doors, like it's going to be a different story because my power allows me to have the facade of honesty.
Correct. And you've got realpolitik. They know I have to do this to win. And that was part of what really struck me about James Burnham is that he is just telling you this is when you strip away the facade of like, we're all making nice and countries have borders and we realize it's only stability essentially through strength, not to use, an overplayed phrase, but it really is true. And the second thing, which dovetails with that is that there is always going to be an elite class. And I came into the book raging against that. And being like, well, hold on, we have this moment where you don't need that. And he was like, literally details how you can look at any organization, any way that things are ordered, and there is always a select number of people that people turn to. And I remember in the Chaz and the Chop, they were all like, no, we don't have leaders and all that. And even they would have people that became the go-to people to go speak to the media and all that. And then organizations that like patently refuse to have leadership, like Occupy Wall Street, they end up diffusing because they don't have a mechanism by which they can really get structured, be very clear about what their aims are, limit the focus, and move everybody forward. And so I really acquiesce to that may just be true about organizing humans in large groups, that it is a patent inevitability that you will end up with a smaller group at the top that control everybody else and then trigger the initial insight about man as political animal. So you'll get this elite class, and for whatever reason, like they are then going to do things even when they think they're right. And I hate using this person as an example because I truly like them. I respect the shit out of them. Who?
Hitler?
No. Oh, Jesus.
Jesus?
No, not him either. Mr. Sam Harris,
Okay.
who
Okay.
I think really believes in the idea of the elites. He will often refer to it as institutions.
Yes.
We need
Yes.
institutions. The institutions need credibility. I think that's his stand-in for you need a narrative that everybody can get behind and everybody can believe in, which is the very thing this moment is going to test with the velocity and volume of information that we have based on social media. Everybody is going to scream into the void, and you're going to have the narrative be blown apart. I mean, what's really happening though is it starts crystallizing, but on different tracks,
Yes.
which is pretty fascinating to watch. And so if it is inescapable, we're about to see what that looks like at scale.
So for people who haven't read this book, it's a collection of 4 thinkers that Curtis Yarvin calls the Italian school. I don't know if that's unique to him. And Georges Sorel. So Georges Sorel wrote a book called Reflections on Violence. I think it was published in 1906. I have a first printing in French and in English.
Oh.
And his whole point is, and he was a socialist, but his whole point is the use of myth and in moving cultures. And this is something that conservatives didn't understand for a very long time, where you would have leftists making some argument about some issue, and the conservatives come back with like these studies and these statistics, and it's like that does not change people's minds. They need a story, they need a narrative. And for Sorel, it was the myth of general strike and this idea that we're all going to revolt together, and that's what can kind of move people in a socialist way together. The other 3 thinkers are Robert Michel, Gaetano Mosca, and Pareto. And there's what you refer to there's something called the iron law of oligarchy, which is it's inevitable that in any organization there's going to be kind of this oligarchical rule, even if it's trying to fight against it. And you said there's something inevitable with humans. It's inevitable with like animals, because the term pecking order comes from birds. And I had in my house, in my aquarium, before the blackout killed them all, I had a big eye, which is a fish from the Caribbean. I had a soapfish from the Indian Ocean. I had a cowfish from the Indo-Pacific, I believe. And there was somebody else, but they, between themselves, these fish, who was the only place on earth they were together is in my house, figured out who's going to get food first.
That's so crazy.
So it's inevitable that that's going to happen. And I talk about this in my book, Then You Write. You know, people say communism doesn't work in theory. Democracy is one of those things, works in practice, but works in theory, not in practice. Democracy is one of those things that doesn't even work in theory, because the purest example of democracy is like a town hall, right? Where everyone can get up and speak their piece, but someone is still picking people. Someone is still saying how long you talk. Someone is saying what issues are on the table, and that is an elite. So even in that example, you're still going to have someone who's establishing some sort of boundaries. So again, this is one of the things about the left anarchists I don't understand. This claim of like universal equality doesn't even make sense theoretically. It's not even conceivable.
Agreed. Yeah, that the book is very confronting with that, because you can come in, as I did, really wanting to like just shake off that yoke, and man, does it make a very compelling argument that it shows from multiple different angles where you're like, Jesus, yeah, I really don't think we can escape this.
One of the things that I find frustrating in my work is, and I think this is getting worse, maybe because I'm becoming a boomer, that people are comfortable being unreliable, right? And like if you're asking someone to do something, I always tell the kids, I'm like, be competent. You can't be excellent when you're young. You're not going to have the skill set. But if I say, give this to me on Tuesday, and I have it on Tuesday and it's good to go, you're at the 80th percentile. I'd rather have that than you tell me, you know, I'm going to have it for you on Sunday and give it to me on Monday. I'd rather know I can rely on you. When you're dealing with a huge company like Quest, you're dealing with a lot of moving parts. How do you not go crazy when people don't follow through? Or
I mean, you do go crazy, to be honest, or at least I did. That is it's a company culture thing. You really have to bake it into the culture. You have to have a standard and hold people accountable to it. And I've for a long time resisted the like, well, things are getting worse and it's getting harder. It's really getting worse.
It is, right? Okay.
Now, part of it is I'm in a much more creative field than I was when I was at Quest. And so now everybody's in media. So you just get more sensitive souls. But Michael, it's really obnoxious where I'm like, if somebody exits the company voluntarily or otherwise, I'm like, I would very much like to replace this person with AI. So
Okay.
we have actually scaled down our
Wow.
workforce because I'm
I
like,
can't do it. I can't do it.
I need people that are hardcore. And maybe because I'm sliding towards boomerism, or maybe I'm just out of step with youth, but know that the way that I behave is so much more functional that I'm just like, I don't want to tolerate people that don't, if you say you're going to have it to me on Sunday, then you have it to me on Sunday. That's that. What I always tell people is goals make demands. So you're not fighting with me. Like people will say, they say this all the time. I did it that way, Tom, because I thought you would like it. And then I would say, are we in the please Tom business?
Oh, shit.
And they would say, no, we are not in the please Tom business. That's right. Who are we in the business of pleasing? The customer. Correct. So is the thing that you gave me something the customer wants? If yes, great. And then it's irrelevant whether I liked it or not. And if it isn't, then what are we doing? So goals make demands. Life is hard. This is a competition. Like you really have to push yourself. And for me, that's always been exciting. And it's not universal, but for a lot of people, especially younger people, that it's anathema to them.
Yeah, the thing that bothers me that I can't wrap my head around, maybe it's because I was a business major and they beat this into us, literally. There's a lack of remorse or shame. Like I would give something to you that's like fucked up or half baked, and you're like, "What the hell is this?" And it's like, "Oh, sorry, like I had a lot of shit going on." And I'm like, for me to ever say that to somebody,
It's crazy.
it would never enter my head. It's
Crazy.
I would just want to drink poison. It's
Yep.
just like, how would I with this? I could see it if it was real, like family emergency. Then as soon as that emergency hits, I'm emailing you. I'm like, and also knowing you've never gotten this email from me before,
Right.
like shit's hitting the fan with my mom. This is what I got right now. I'm giving you as much heads up as possible. Like, and I'll give you all the information so that you can understand I'm coming from a place of truth. This is a legit emergency and not, I got to finish watching the 5th season of You. And also I'm mortified to put you in this position, even though it's a situation outside of my control. And I don't think that's the norm.
Oh, it's not the norm anymore, man. So it really used to be like when I wrote the document that you started this with that you hated.
Yeah.
It was met with yes, like so we were in the inner cities recruiting a ton of people, former drug dealers, gang members, long story, but like that was a big part of my mission. And dude, when I say that they blossomed under that and really for the first time in their lives understood how to marshal their focus and like
structure.
Really do a thing.
Yeah.
And they were like, this is amazing. And then flash forward, 12 years later, and the next crop of people that same age are just night and day different. It is startling because it will have consequences.
But how do you, this is my Achilles heel. And this is one of the reasons why maybe I'm not bigger than I am, although that could be my ego talking. I find it, I can't psychologically talk about when to headbutt somebody and then I can't handle dealing with people like this.
Yep.
Like because they don't, it's so not in my Venn diagram. Like I feel like I'm talking to alien.
Yeah. I mean, look, for better or worse, I have had meetings that go like this. Let's say we have a department that's going toxic. I will bring them into a room and I'll say, look, you guys are going toxic because we have a rule in our company. If you have a criticism that you're prepared to take to your grave, not even tell your significant other, you still have an obligation to voice that inside the company. So we have a whole system called DOTS where you give people specific feedback, good, bad, doesn't matter. Like you did this, I didn't like it for this reason, whatever. And so you're always supposed to be telling people whatever is true. And I knew that we had a problem going, so I brought them in. I said, look, your department's turning toxic.
What does that mean, turning toxic?
You're bitching. So
that's what you mean. Okay. Okay.
You're complaining, but not saying it to the person.
Yeah. Okay. But that is toxic. That's correct. That's correct word.
If you guys don't know, different among you come and like fucking say, oh, so-and-so said this, and you guys aren't saying it. So each of you are like ratting each other out. So it's not like I'm guessing here. I know this is what's happening. So at the end of this meeting, I said, I want to listen. So first of all, I just want to hear where you guys are coming from. I want to make sure there's not some blind spot that I have where you guys can help me get better and that there's something I'm not missing. But after hearing that there was nothing, I said, cool. At the end of this meeting, you're either going to go left and go back to work, or you're going to go right and you're going to exit the building. Either is fine with me.
Holy fuck.
But Michael, what else do you do?
I know. I'm
So,
sorry, but like,
but-
I thought, no, you know, I'm saying holy fuck because I thought I was low politeness. Jesus Christ, man!
But here's the
Oh my
thing.
God, Thomas!
no.
Oh my God!
Hold
No wonder
on.
you're so wealthy, dude.
You-
I never saw this side of you.
Here's the
I
thing.
kind of love it.
This comes at the end of months, or in some cases years
you're right,
of invest,
Right,
like
you're
pulling
right,
people
you're right.
aside. How
You're
can
right.
I help you? Like, we have them rate their week. Are you clear on what you need to do? Are you feeling overwhelmed? And we'll go, how can we help? Like, what can we take off your plate? My thing is, if you fucking lie week after week and you say everything is fine and then you bitch, you are now my enemy because you're holding this company back. Now, the thing is, to be the person I want to be, you have to say those things. And so you say it and say, look, one, I'm open, which I hope they
Wait,
believe.
I got to interrupt you.
Please go for it.
I'm so. Oh my God. I knew there's a reason I thought so highly of you. Man, I totally had you pegged wrong. I thought I totally had you pegged wrong. The fact that you're using such a malice term as my enemy is so beautiful. I love it. You've used that word in the office?
I am basically quoting a recent meeting. Yeah. Yeah. Just with less intensity.
Do you see how you're sitting like Al Pacino right now in that? Was that
now
movie?
that you say it, yes, but that was not the intent at the time.
Oh my God, he's such a badass. Okay.
Oh, good Lord. That I am not. But
yes, you are.
if I was like, oh my God, super cheery about being like that, I hate that is the wake-up call that ultimately you have to give to people. I found it far more interesting, 12-ish years ago, where you could make people feel like they were one of the 300 soldiers and they were honored to be in the army and to be fighting with you. And as long as you were also in a loincloth and you were also jacked and willing to take a spear and you held your shield for your brothers, that they were all like down for it. Dude, honestly, at some point I really need to tell the story of the first 2 years of Quest, which was 95% of our employees they grew up on the streets. And people with teardrop tattoos, literally we have Crips and Bloods working the same line, and how you manage that as a white guy, like it was just a whole fucking thing.
Is this a movie with like Michelle Pfeiffer?
Oh man, but very different because there was no bullshit. So like we had like literally the guys doing sting operations against each other because they would set up criminal rings inside the company, because you can't hire a bunch of, because our thing was, one of my beliefs is it doesn't matter who you are today. It matters who you want to become and the price you're willing to pay.
Sure.
To get
Yes.
So if you have a felony conviction, I will still consider you for employment. Now, show me the incentive and I'll show you the outcome.
Regards to the felony?
Yeah. So you would get guys who are like, oh, this white guy's fucking moronic. I'm on parole. I'm going to use this as a front for my drug money.
Yeah.
So I need a job. And so I'll go in and do whatever. And say I'm now making $85,000. And so that's why I have a car, not saying that I make $300,000 selling drugs.
Yeah.
So I'm literally, one of them just admitted that to me after I earned his trust over time. And he ends up becoming one of the greatest success stories. But anyway, so you have all that going on. And I just said to them plainly, listen, I have a hypothesis, and my hypothesis makes a prediction. My hypothesis is, if I show you that I care about your future more than your own mother, even though you will get more and more powerful and could go work for any company, you will want to work here because you've never had anybody create opportunity for you like I'm going to create for you while you're here. But your tuition is you're going to make protein bars. And so they would come in and absolutely kill themselves to help and to help this company, which at the time was literally just trying to get off the ground.
Yeah.
And one of them, this is a grown man that faced down an attempted murder charge. He didn't do it. He knew who did, but if he told them, they would kill his family. And so his mother goes bankrupt, making sure that he doesn't end up going to prison. He ends up working for us. He comes in the room. This is a grown man, okay? Grows up in one of the worst neighborhoods in Compton. And he just bursts into tears. And he was like, you really do care more about my future than my own mother. And for the first time, I have hope. And I was like, holy shit. So it was like one of those things where if you give somebody hope for what their life could be, I don't care how thugged out they look on the outside, on the inside, they're like, oh my God, this feels so much better. So imagine I have a period of all that. These guys like, holy shit, like hold the line. I mean, we're just making protein bars, but that's how it felt.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, I'm here to make this company great because you're trading me with knowledge and skills in a way that nobody's ever done before. There's so many opportunities being created here. And
I
now
know exactly what this is like because Harvey Pekar from American Splendor
I keep forgetting you know him.
wrote a graphic novel about me in 2006.
So crazy.
And that's why I can't watch Charlie and Chocolate Factory, the better Johnny Depp version, without crying because Harvey gave me a golden ticket. So it's exactly what you gave these guys. You believed in them. You showed them for the first time, you're not a piece of shit. I'm giving you actual responsibilities that's going to affect my business. So there's equity in this that's going to affect me personally. Like, and a lot of them are like, this is my path to get off of being a fucking criminal on that hamster wheel of jail and then the grave. So a lot of these guys, I did 2 books with D.L. Hughley from Compton. He's like, these guys are hustlers because they're smart.
Yes.
They just have no place to channel this.
Yes.
And they're certainly in an environment where any kind of book learning, whatever, is very much selected against.
Yeah. Whole stories about
of course.
People feeling betrayed because their friends started reading. I mean, like really, really crazy. So anyway, going from that to now where I've got editors and a nice air-conditioned space and they are feeling hard done by because they're not done by 6 sometimes. Like, I'm just like, what the fuck is going on?
But again, how do you handle it?
I walked you through the meeting we just had.
But I
and some, by the way, left.
Folks, for those of you who are small business owners, you got to wear a lot of hats, but admit it, HR is probably the one that you'd rather not wear. There are so many nuances to mention. It's really time consuming. And that's where Bamboo HR comes in. They were very smart. They made me watch their video. And the dashboard is really easy to use, easy to navigate. Everything's there. And you could go between asking for time off, approving things, projects, who's doing what, how far they've gone along, all the click of a button, and all in a very clear and easy to use interface. Bamboo HR is a powerful, flexible, all-in-one HR solution for your growing business. Stop spending countless hours on payroll, tracking time, benefits, performance management. With Bamboo HR, those hours are shaved down to minutes. They've got this AI part. So people have common questions. Instead of having to waste time going to HR, getting the phone, how much time left do I have? How many vacation days do I have left? It'll know how to look it up and to answer things like that. Very smart. Bamboo HR prides itself on being super easy, meaning easy to use, easy to learn, easy to implement, and easy to love. It takes a couple of minutes to check out the free demo and see how nimble and affordable this valuable tool can be. I used to train people on software. This interface could not be beat. They did it perfectly. Reclaim your time. Do what they did. Check out the free demo at bamboohr.com/free demo. See for yourself all that Bamboo HR can do and how affordable it can be too. That's bamboohr.com/free demo, bamboohr.com/free demo. Let's get back to the show.
Let's talk about this also because again, corporate, and again, you're not a corporation like Goldman Sachs, like where I worked, but corporate culture is one of the things that my dad taught me, when I was starting out in having a job, because all these bosses love to say, I have an open door policy. If you have a problem, come talk to me. And my dad goes, they're lying, you idiot. Like, this is how they want to see themselves. But at a certain point, if you keep complaining to them, you become the problem. So people have this idea of who they want to perceive themselves as, and they will actually believe it. But in practice, that's not the case at all. So isn't that a concern that you're saying there is a disincentive for being that person who's the squeaky wheel?
So there's a way to do squeaky wheel well, and there's a way to do squeaky wheel poorly. So if somebody has no shock absorbers and they can't take a normal stressful week and they've, got to throw a flag and be like, yo, this is crazy, I'm just so overwhelmed. Then I'm like, this is not somebody who can control their emotions, who can say, oh, I can deal with a hard week. That would be a problem. If, on the other hand, somebody's earned a reputation, like this guy can really carry weight. So when he's like, hey, this is getting too much, I'm instantly like, whoa, we really have a problem here.
Okay.
So I want people to speak up. And I also have shock absorbers. So if I feel like you're probably squeaking too early, I'm like, look, it's all good. No worries. If they keep doing their thing, I do want to make problems go away. So if when I look at it, I'm like, there really is a systems thing here that we can solve that will make their lives easier, I'm all for it. We all have a goal. And if that's going to help them, I'm here for it. And so it is a very subjective, nuanced dance of, and I tell them this, I'm like, there is such a thing as complaining too much or too early. But if that's you, I'm going to tell you to your face that that's you. I've told people, listen, if you come and say, I can't do my job in this period of time, I will happily sit with you and do your job for you. And I said, I want you to think of it as one-on-one basketball. If I can come not having been doing your job for the last year and do your job better than you and show that it can be done in that period of time, that's the standard. So I'm happy to do it, but you have to understand that I am coming to show you that this can be done in that amount of time. And if you're right, I'm going to see it firsthand and be like, whoa, this is too much. And then you'll have been right. I'll have been wrong. I'll be the first to admit it. We back off and you keep doing your thing. But I don't see another way around that. So at some point, you have to know what the standard is. And as a CEO, certainly of a company my size, you have to know everybody's job well enough you can't be bamboozled. And the number of times that I've just learned over and over and over, when somebody tells you, oh, that thing can't be done, unless they can work up from physics and explain to me why it can't be done, it's a trap. And so as soon as somebody's like, oh, it can't be done, that's not possible, you've got to go in, you've got to force your will. And this is, it's known in sailing as VMG, velocity made good. But if an entrepreneur wants to know why, it's something like 96% of all companies fail to get to $10 million in revenue. I mean, think about that. That is staggering. So the reason is people may have a good idea. They may even be able to like get things started. But when things start going awry, somebody's dad dies, somebody else is just feeling overwhelmed because their home life is poor, they're not setting the right standard, whatever. They're not able to go in and systematically start setting the standard, lead by example, push harder than anybody, deliver more results, but inspire people to go in behind them and want to do it, not feel beaten up, not feel judged. They just can't do that. But that's velocity made good. That's like that intangible thing in business where you find a way to get everybody not only moving fast, but moving in the same direction with the conviction that this is the right way to do it.
What are some the job interview? That's really important because that's a filter, right?
Freakishly important.
It's any filter has those two kind of type errors. There's the filter where it lets in things you don't want, like a door lock, which can be jimmied easily. And there's the filter which keeps out things you do want, like your key stops working the door. Everyone in that job interview is trying to get past. Some people you want that person. Some people, wait a minute, you're great for an hour. What are some techniques? And this is something that's universal. If you're looking to work with somebody, what kind of questions should they be asking that will kind of give them actually useful information if this is a good person to hire or work with?
Okay, there's two things you have to solve for in an interview. Can they do the job?
Right.
And are they a cultural fit?
Okay.
People tend to ask, can you do the job questions that you can put on a resume?
Right.
What that will tell you is that they were a part of a team that did the job. And you may get the worst one on the team that everybody else was mad about. And that's why this person's looking for a job. So unfortunately, I've learned that the hard way by hiring people where I'm like, whoa, look at all the stuff they've done. This is incredible. If this guy can do this, like we're really in business. So you would say like, ooh, tell me about that project. That must have been really cool. Yeah, we did this. We took it from there. And what I learned was that isn't tactical enough. They were close enough to know somebody did that thing. And so I'll start asking, because we're in YouTube, I'll ask questions like, what's more important, average view duration or average view percentage? And I'll probably, honestly, in the interview, I'll say, what's more important, AVD or AVP? So now they have to know what AVD is, they have to know what AVP is, and they have to have a stance on why that is. And then I'll go, cool, where do you go in the analytics to find AVP?
Oh, wow. So you're asking actual technical questions.
Yes. And so now I have to know it well enough to be able to ask that question. But, and this is the thing, just listen to how they answer. If they're like, oh, well, it's been a minute since I was in there, then I'm like, cool, you were a manager, you weren't actually a doer. I'm looking to hire a doer. So already this is out of the question. If somebody's like AVP and AVD, well, if I really think about the way the algorithm works, then I'm like, Jesus, like if you've been doing the role I'm trying to hire for, like you've got a stance on that right now. And I want to know what it is. And you ought to be able to explain it very quickly. If people have to ramble and they're like fractaling all over the place, I'm like, you don't understand it simply. Now, interviews are designed to maximize anxiety. So I'm like,
they are?
I wish they weren't, but they most certainly are.
Wait, they're designed to maximize?
I mean, seemingly, when people come in, they're trying to get the job. They're often freaking out. You can hear like in their voice that they're really nervous.
I have fun in interviews.
Oh man, then you got to come interview for us.
I've always done great in interviews.
I want to learn at your feet.
Are you serious? Wait, designed to maximize anxiety?
They seem designed to maximize anxiety, yes. Especially, look, listen to the questions that I ask. I'm not trying to, I would love it if they could be calm, But the purpose of the questions I'm asking is to find out if they actually know what they're doing.
But even I don't know AVD versus AVP,
Yep.
but I could off the top of my head make the case for either. And this is not my wheelhouse at all.
Yes. Michael, you do realize you fall into a very different camp. And if you're available for employment, I would hire you in an instant. But there is a reason that you're not available for employment. So the people that are walking in, unfortunately, don't have your horsepower.
I'll give people a little interview trick that always worked for me.
Please.
This is really great. So if you have the job listing that says, like, off the top of my head, like, oh, you need to be organized. What I would do is do a faux complaint. And when you break politeness in a job interview, it signals sincerity, right? So I would say something like, just between you and me, my last company was really disorganized, and it's really important for me that this company has a lot of structure. Is that something that fits in with your corporate culture? And their box will be checked. Oh, shit. This guy is exactly what we're solving for. So take that adjective or whatever that word is in the description and then create a scenario that shows this something that is a prime concern, not an interest, a concern of yours.
That's very smart.
Is that a good technique?
That is a very good technique.
Yeah.
I wish you were among the employable.
So now I'm kind of, and I've always gotten it was interesting for me because I would used to co-authoring books of celebrities, which was obviously extremely competitive. And the thing that I would get my gigs with, and I'm curious as something that you, as someone who interviews people, it would work in that context, is I would always ask questions that were probing and that showed I'm excited and want to learn more, as opposed to I'm just answering your questions, meaning I'm almost being subordinate or submissive.
Yep.
Is that a good
massive?
Okay.
Like when it's always funny to me when people come in for an interview and you do the whole thing and then you're like, do you have any questions for us? And they're like, yeah, actually. And then they like ask some like, where do you want to see the company in 5 years? And I'm like, oh my God.
Right.
Like versus the person who's like, hey, look, this job that I'm applying for, this is what I want to do with my life.
Yeah.
I want to make sure that I'm going to be able to move forward in my career, my skill set, that I'm going to be able to contribute meaningfully to the company. And so I've looked at what you guys are doing and I see opportunities here. And I'd really like to know, will I be able to engage with this? Because this is what I would like to do. Man, I'd be turned on. Like that kind of, I've done analysis before coming in. I've looked at your company. I see what you're doing wrong and I have ways that I want to see it go well. And I'm legitimately excited to contribute in that way. I don't want to hire people that are posting about how, oh God, I have to work, but I live for the weekends. It's like, that's a nightmare. I want people that really want to express their talents through what they do.
So you and I both have had, Quest is a great company. I like I said, I'm a Quest fan, but it's not remaking America, nor is it trying to. You and I both had a small but marginal impact on the last election. Me going on Rogan, and before Officer Harris was basically codified, calling her a literal retard and having that clip go viral. And on your show, Nicole Stranahan announced that RFK was going to drop out and endorse Trump. And this was a big, big moment. Was there a point in your thinking like, holy shit, I'm actually moving the needle in terms of America? This is kind of like, what was your thought process there?
In that moment, the bigger thing that occurred to me was they had reached out to us.
Right.
And I was not known for political interviews. So I was like, why'd they reach out to us? Then the first hour of the podcast was like normal.
Right.
Nothing, no indication that she was like going to touch on a hot button issue. It didn't feel like it at the time, but in retrospect, I think what she was doing was feeling me out.
Okay.
And then at some point she clicks over in her mind.
You were being interviewed by her.
Yes, this is the guy that I'm going to say it for. And so she hints and I was like,
right,
let's pull on that thread.
Mm-hmm.
And I pull on the thread and she ends up saying all the things that make it go viral. And we wrap and I'm thinking, what just happened? This is a bombshell. And I go up to her comms guy and I was like, whoa, man. And he goes, you're going to want to release that fast.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was like, why'd you choose us? And he goes, you did an interview with Vivek Ramaswamy. And I thought you handled yourself really well. And I was the comms guy for him.
Oh, wow.
And he was like, so when I knew that she was thinking about this, we came here. He's like, I didn't know what she was going to say though. So I was like, oh my God, to your point, she was interviewing me for the first hour and then decided, okay, we're going to do it here.
But I mean, how did that make, I'm sorry, I don't know how to say this in a non-obnoxious way, but how'd that make you feel? Is there this sense, holy shit, this isn't just a joke anymore? Not a joke, but you know what I mean? Like, this isn't just fun and games anymore.
Yeah, I didn't. So this election cycle felt like, oh, it matters now to be engaging with politics.
Yes.
So I already had this sense of never did I think I would find myself here, but here I am. And the feeling I felt about that was I felt seen, because I really felt like when I was the mindset guy, I was big. Anybody I wanted on the show, I could get on the show. As I migrated away from mindset and started doing things that I think matter a lot more, like mindset to me is just the foundation, but ultimately you're trying to build a house.
Yeah.
And so I didn't want to be stuck always pouring concrete over here on the foundation. And so getting into this game, it's been like, so many of the people that followed me before actively were upset that I had moved into politics and was talking about this stuff. And so for the comms guy of Vivek to then become the comms guy for Nicole and to seek me out, that felt like, okay, maybe I'm really doing something useful here.
I'm curious if that person was my contact. So I had Vivek several times on my show. I'm the one who got him to look into Russ Ulbricht, which I was very excited about. He stole one of my lines and fucked it up. And then Elon took it and ran with it. And every time I see it, I'm absolutely triggered because their perversion of the line does not make sense. So my line was, every time they say our democracy, they mean our hegemony. By which, when you hear people in the media talk about our democracy, they really mean their cultural domination and control. And Vivek said every time, and his people watch my stuff, I'm not, tinfoil and hatting here. Every time they say our democracy, they mean our bureaucracy. It's a nice rhyme, but they don't mean our bureaucracy, because they mean the universities, they mean Hollywood, they mean, the newspapers, the magazines, the school system. That's not all the same bureaucracy. And much of it is outside the Washington bureaucracy. So that version of it does not make sense. When Caitlin Collins from CNN is talking about our democracy, she means CNN and leftist values. She does not mean literally the Washington establishment, which is the conclusion of the problem as opposed to the source. And everyone runs with it now, and it bothers me a lot. So I don't know what I'm going to do with this information, but that's where we are. Folks, head over to malice.locals.com where Tom took questions from supporting listeners. Tom, we're running out of time. What has been your favorite part of this interview?
The honest answer, Michael, is that you make me laugh. You see things at such a skewed lens that you always surprise me with your responses. And I knew I was going to enjoy this for that very reason. So I can't remember the last time I laughed this much while being interviewed.
You are welcome.
For weeks now, New Jersey residents have been plagued by unexplained drones flying overhead.
Is there intelligent alien life? And if so, has the government been covering it up?
All right, UFO sightings the military can't explain. Congressional hearings, Pentagon whistleblower. What does it all mean?
What does it all mean? We are here to try and figure it all out with our new Ancient Aliens podcast. There is a doorway in the universe. Beyond it is the promise of truth. It demands we question everything we have ever been taught. The evidence is all around us. The future is right before our eyes. We are not alone. We have never been alone. Listen to the Ancient Aliens podcast, available wherever you get your podcasts.
Pluto TV has all the shows and movies you love streaming for free. That means laughter is free with gut-busting comedies like The Neighborhood, Boomerang, and Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Bueller.
Mystery is free with countless cases to crack from Criminal Minds, Tracker, and Matlock.
I'm a lawyer, like the old TV show.
And thrills are free with heart-pumping hits like The Walking Dead and Pulp Fiction.
Correctamundo.
Feel the free Pluto TV. Stream now, pay never.